So in a study conducted by David Mears, it was found that from the years 1887 to 2000, more than 70,000 articles were written on topics such as depression, anxiety, fear, and anger, while the number of articles written on topics such as joy and happiness was less than 5,000. This shows how essentially before the year 2000, psychology was essentially seen as a science of treating mental disorders. However, in 1998, Martin Seligman, also known as the father of positive psychology, drew attention to this deficit-based approach. He claimed that after the world wars, the focus of psychologists had shifted almost entirely towards treating disease and pathology, and this was a consequence of conditions such as missing limbs or post-traumatic stress disorders that many soldiers had reported from fighting in wars. There were numerous studies conducted on why children of parents who had mental disorders inherited the same disorders as their parents, but very few studies conducted on children who had healthy adjustment and did not inherit their parents' mental disorders. This prompted Seligman to lead a change in the thinking in psychology. He wanted to change the narrative from how to reduce suffering to how can we become lastingly happier. But first, let's understand why we as humans always tend to focus more on negatives than positives. So this negative bias can be understood in terms of the Ice Age brain. The idea behind the Ice Age brain is that our ancestors lived in harsh and challenging conditions where they always needed to be hyper aware in order to avoid potential dangers just to survive. In this context, paying extra attention to negative stimuli such as wild animals or environmental threats like floods, etc., or any other potential threats helped increase our chances of survival. We basically have a catastrophic brain that is always looking for what's wrong. The problem is, this approach favored people back then. It worked in that era, but it doesn't work in the modern world. And while modern humans do not face the same life or death situations that our ancestors did, this cognitive bias still exists. However, just fixing what's wrong may not lead to well-being. The same way the absence of symptoms does not indicate a sense of well-being, and the diagnosis of a disorder would not mean that the individual is entirely dysfunctional. So on a happiness scale that ranges from -10 to +10, where -10 indicates severely depressed, 0 indicates neutral, and +10 indicates optimal well-being, our goal should always be to reach towards the higher end of the scale and hover around the +10 mark and not hover around the 0 mark, because fixing what's wrong may only get us from -10 to 0. However, in order to go from 0 to +10, it is up to us to take some actionable steps. So what can we do? Here are some actionable ideas that you can implement in your life. So the first thing we can do is consciously practice gratitude or apply what is called the Pollyanna principle in psychology. So the Pollyanna principle in psychology comes from an old story about a cheerful and optimistic girl who was named Pollyanna, and she played what she called the glad game. So the game essentially was that no matter how sad or upsetting her situation was, she always tried to find one positive thing about it, what we might call a silver lining in today's world. Ultimately, she gets so good at this game that she gets her entire town to play this game with her, and ultimately ends up making a significant positive impact on the people in her town. So research has consistently shown that if we actively try to find something positive in everything, then we are much more likely to recall past neutral events as positive and in turn feel happier with ourselves. So the second thing you can do is to display greater emo diversity. Now, emo diversity stands for emotional diversity, that is the relative abundance and diversity of emotions you display in life. So in two cross-sectional studies that consisted of over 37,000 respondents, it was found that people that showed greater emotional diversity, whether it is computed for positive emotions, negative emotions, angry emotions, all emotions, they were consistently linked to lower depression levels and had much better physical and mental health. So if you're a person with greater emo diversity, then that emo diversity can help in preventing certain detrimental emotions from dominating your ecosystem. For example, if a person has experienced some kind of injustice and the emotion that that person experiences is sadness, then they have a high likelihood of falling into depression. But if that person experiences anger along with sadness, then they have a much less likelihood of falling into depression. So it is always better to display a wide variety of emotions for better well-being. So So this was the video, guys. I hope you liked it, and if you liked it, please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.